Hello everyone, thank you and welcome to this Microsoft certifications channel. For today, we'll be looking at the Microsoft AZ500 exam preparation. So this is just the Azure Security um, Technologies exam that is going to prepare you to become an Azure Security Engineer Associate. So for those of us taking these exams, we have this revision material here to help you prepare. So we'll go through 214 questions and answers, or 214 case studies for you to just improve on your knowledge after having gone through the notes. Please take note that you must go through the notes and learn before you come to these case studies or questions and answers to boost your preparation. Also be aware that through the link in the description, you can download all these questions and answers for free for you to go through and learn as you prepare for your exams. I wish you all the best as you do prepare for your exams. And as we go on with the preparation, please just be open-minded and know that you need to do more than just these to pass the exams. So on to the first question that we are going to look at. I'll quickly go to the first question. In this case study for Litware Inc., so Litware Inc. is a digital media company with 500 employees in the Chicago area and 20 employees in San Francisco. So the existing environment, it has an Azure subscription named Sub1 that has a subscription ID of the one given there. Sub1 is associated to an Azure directory, Azure AD, an Active Directory, tenant named litwareinc.com. The tenant contains the user objects and the device objects of all Litware employees on their devices. Each user is assigned an Azure AD Premium P2 license. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management (PIM) is activated. The tenant contains groups shown in the following table. There is Group 1, the security group, a group that has dynamic user membership type, contains all San Francisco users, and provides access to many Azure AD applications and Azure resources. Then there is Group 2, which is the security group, a group that has the dynamic user membership type and contains the Chicago IT team. The Azure subscription contains the objects shown in the following table. So there is VNet1, the virtual network that contains security sensitive IT resources. It has three subnets: subnet 0, subnet 1, Azure firewall subnet. There is VMO or VM0. This is the virtual machine. It's an Azure virtual machine that runs Windows Server 2016, connects to subnet 0, and has GIT VM access configured. VM1, the virtual machine, is an Azure virtual machine that runs Windows Server 2016 and connects to subnet 0. There is SQL DB1, the Azure SQL database, an Azure SQL database on an SQL server named Litware SQL Server 1. There is Web App 1, a web app that is accessible using litwareinc.com, either the HTTPS or the HTTP. Then there is resource group 1, a resource group that contains VNet1, VM0, and VM1. Resource group 2, a resource group that contains shared IT resources. So Azure Security Center is set to the free tier. So the planned changes we are looking at here, Litware plans to deploy the Azure resources as shown in this table. Firewall 1 as an Azure firewall on VNet 1, RT1, a route table that contains a route pointing to firewall 1 as the default gateway and will be assigned to subnet 0. Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS, a managed AKS cluster. So Litware identifies the following access requirements. All San Francisco users and their devices must be members of Group 1. The members of Group 2 must be assigned the contributor role to Resource Group 2 by using a permanent eligible assignment. Users must be prevented from registering applications in Azure AD and from consenting to applications that access company information on the user's behalf. Platform protection requirements. Litwire identifies the following platform protection requirements. Microsoft Anti-Malware must be installed on the virtual machines in Resource Group 1. Members of Group 2 must be assigned the Azure Kubernetes Service cluster admin role. The members of Group 2 must be assigned the Azure Kubernetes Service cluster admin role. Azure AD users must be to authenticate to AKS1 by using the Azure AD credentials. Following the implementation of the planned changes, the IT team must be able to connect to VM0 by using just-in-time VM access. A new RBAC role named Role 1 must be used to delegate the administration of managing disks in Resource Group 1. Role 1 must be available only for Resource Group 1. Security operations requirements. Litware must be able to customize the operating system security configurations in Azure Security Center. So just looking at some of these questions. Question 1, you need to meet the identity and access requirements for Group 1. What should you do? So there is adding a membership rule to Group 1, deleting Group 1 and creating a new group named Group 1 that has membership type of 365. Add users and devices to the group. Then the option C, modify the membership rule of Group 1. Then option D, change the membership type of Group 1 to assigned. Create two groups that have dynamic memberships. Add the two groups to Group 1. So the actual answer is D. To meet the identity and access requirements for Group 1, you change the membership type of Group 1 to assigned. Then you create two groups that have dynamic memberships, and then you add the two new groups to Group 1. So the explanation is on a link, as you will see in the document, in the link in the description. And the scenario is that Litware identifies the following identity and access requirements. All San Francisco users and their devices must be members of Group 1. The tenant currently contains this group. So Group 1 is the security group, a group that has dynamic user membership type, contains all San Francisco users, and provides access to many Azure AD applications and Azure resources. On to question 2. You need to ensure that users can access VM0. The solution must meet the platform protection requirements. So what should you do? A. Move VM0 to subnet 1. B. On firewall, configure a network traffic filtering rule. C. Assign RT1 to Azure firewall subnet. D. On firewall, configure a DNAT rule. So the answer is A. You need to move VM0 to subnet 1. Question 3. You need to ensure that you can meet the security operations requirements. What should you do first? A. Turn on auto provisioning in Security Center. B. Integrate Security Center and Microsoft Cloud App Security. C. Upgrade the pricing tier of Security Center to standard. D. Modify the Security Center workspace configuration. So the answer is C. You need to upgrade the pricing tier of Security Center to standard. Question 4. You need to configure Web App 1 to meet the data and application requirements. Which two actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note that each correct selection is worth 1 point. So there are 2 points here. 1 or A, upload a public certificate. B, turn on HTTPS only protocol setting. C, set the minimum TLS version protocol setting to 1.2. D, change the pricing tier of the app service plan. E, turn on the incoming client certificates protocol setting. So the two correct options are B, turn on the HTTPS only protocol setting, and option E, turn on the incoming client certificates protocol setting. Question 5. Hotspot. You need to create role 1 to meet the platform protection requirements. How should you complete the role definition of role 1? To answer, you need to select the appropriate options in the answer area, and each option is worth 1 point. So here there is a code, name role 1, ID, there is an ID, IS custom, it's true, description VM storage operator in quotes, then there is actions given in a table format there, notes actions also given there. So as you can see, the first answer is Microsoft.compute that is in that table. The second answer is disks, and it's also in that table. And the third answer there is a subscription. You can see the answer on the screen. Question 6, drag drop. So here you need to configure SQL DB1 to meet the data and application requirements. Which 3 options should you recommend be performed in sequence? To answer, move the appropriate actions from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. So there is an actions and an answer area where you need to move each action to the answer area so that we have them arranged in the correct order. So from these options, we see that there is an action from the Azure portal, create an Azure AD administrator for lit SQL Server 1. Then in SQL DB1, create contained database users. Then there is connect to SQL DB1 by using Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio SSMS. Then in Azure AD, create a system assigned managed identity. Then there is in Azure AD, create a user assigned managed identity. So from the Azure portal, create an Azure AD administrator for Litware SQL Server 1. Then you connect to SQL DB1 by using SSMS. Then in SQL DB1, create contained database users. So that's how you're supposed to do it. Then there's a question 7, hotspot. You need to deploy Microsoft Anti-Malware to meet the platform protection requirements. What should you do? Again, you select the appropriate actions in the answer area, and each is worth 1 point. So there is create a custom policy definition that has an effect set to. You need to select there. Create a policy assignment and modify. then we select. You create a custom policy policy definition that has an effect set to deploy if not exist. Then you create a policy assignment and modify the create a managed identify setting. Question 8. So for question 8, drag drop, you need to deploy a KS1 to meet the platform protection requirements. Which four actions should you perform in sequence? And to answer, you'll move the appropriate actions from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. Note that more than one order of answer choices is correct. You'll receive credit for any of the correct order that you select. So as you can see, the actions: deploy an AKS cluster, create a client application, create a server application, create an RBAC binding, then create a custom RBAC role. So for the one of the correct options that you can use, you first create a server application, then you create a client application, then you deploy an AKS cluster, then you create an RBAC binding. That is one of the correct options. Question 9, you need to ensure that the Azure AD application registration and consent configurations meet the identity and access requirements. What should you do in the Azure portal? So to answer this one, select the appropriate actions in the answer area. To configure the registration settings, there is Azure AD user settings. Then to configure the consent settings, there is the enterprise applications user settings. Those are the correct answers. So we'll proceed to case study 2 in the next video. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, you can go to the link in the description to download this document in full, and if you're able to read through, let it help you prepare for your AZ500 exams. Once again, I wish you all the best. Thank you.